Hey people, how's it going? Okay, so, in case you didn't realise, this is me, Chris. That there, okay, that's Unreal Engine. That there is where people who talk will be visible if they're talking. Although, if this is a recording, it'll be all talk, you know? Now, let me just check my pots. Oh, not good. Let's have a morning wake me up. Because I had a question from one of my chums who isn't a 3D artist and is not a game developer. He was like, well, you know, how do I, what is that, what you were talking about? Because I've made up a post, or put up a post, because I was quite pleased with how things are going on Facebook. And it was like, you know, just explaining what I was doing. Oh, this is hopeless, isn't it? Give me a minute. Well, anyway. God almighty. I thought I would explain in easy peasy terms what it was I was doing and what it's for. Because if I can explain to someone who isn't actually a game developer or 3D artist, I can explain to people who are. Marvellous. Wow. Left myself out last night, not much of a treat. Okay, so first thing I need to do is explain what this is. Okay, now this is a game engine. Now game engines aren't games. What they are is, think of it as a tool shed where you can create things. Alright? Now if you went into a tool shed and there were no hammers and there were no saws and there wasn't a bench and there wasn't like all the equipment to make stuff with, what you would have is doop, bye-bye. Basically a big empty nothing, okay? And the old way of doing video games was you'd have a big empty nothing, like a screen, and you would code your own stuff using lots of special words. And then you'd have to go and you'd have to build things to put inside your game, and build interpreters to pull them in. Now this all happens automatically through this, the game engine. Marvellous. Now, what I was talking about regarding procedural stuff is, if I want to put stuff into a game level, so I'll just start a new game level, okay, here we go. So this is a default basic populated, so we've got the sky in the background and we've got a place for a player to start, right? See, there he is, that's our player, okay. Now, there's not a lot here, okay. Now if I wanted to build something, say for example some houses or a game level if it's a game or anything else, I would drag out this, okay, I'd start dragging out the bits and I'd carefully put them all together, okay, pre-made assets these are called, and then from these I'd start like putting textures on them to make them look more realistic, and so on and so forth, and eventually I'd end up with a full level. Now, I'm not sure if this is a complete built one or not, give me a second. This is probably just an empty area. Oh no, there we go. Here's a good example of that then. Okay, so this is all lit, and I'm going to change it to the big picture. There we go. This is all lit, right? I mean, this is nowhere near finished, but this is obviously a much more detailed area. And if I turn it to unlit, so you can see how big it is, it's not huge, but it's quite large. Okay. Now, building this myself by hand and placing every single asset, all that kind of thing, would usually take me, you know, a few days at least, and I'm pretty good at this. Someone who's not used to it, it'd take them much, much longer. But using a procedural system, imagine it this way. Imagine with a procedural system, what you've got is you've got like a small robot, and you're teaching it that you want it to put something next to the other thing when a certain rule's in place. So for example, put the fence next to the floor when we have a floor, put the ceiling above the floor, put these textures on the ceiling and the floor, put together all these little objects here that make the fence, but not when we're inside a building, and all this kind of thing. So we build all these little rules, and that way it starts to work. Okay, I'm going to drop to an empty level again now. So Here we go. And I'm going to show you what I mean now by a node-based template. Isn't this fun? So I'm going to build this here, I think, just where I can throw it away. So I'm going to make a folder. So I just right-click there, and I'm going to call this the temp folder. Temporary, because why not? And in here, I'm going to create, by right-clicking, a new dungeon theme. Okay, I'm going to call this temp test, because that's what it is. And I shall show you how it works. Right, so I'm opening it up. And there we go. You can see all these things in here. Now this is Dungeon Architect, and this is a node-based one. It's not just for building dungeons, but it does come in handy. It's a paid-for plugin, so it's like any tool. If you get a good tool, you're going to have to pay for it. But it is worth getting, because without this, I would have to do so much more work. Okay, I am going to go down to my starter content, and this is all stuff that comes free with the Unreal Engine, which is also free, that I'm using. So the only thing I've paid for so far is this plugin. Okay. Now, over here is our preview, and as you can see, our level hasn't got a lot in it. This is just a grid to show us where stuff is. And I am going to put in a floor. So I'll just drag a floor up here. Okay. And I'm going to link the ground to the floor. There we go. You see? Easy peasy lemon squeezy. And now we have all this floor that's gone into our level, like that. Now, let's have a look at my dungeon properties. I just want to check my debug data. Now, all these lines here are node lines, okay? So this is our level, basically trying to create paths between the various areas. So you can see these are doorways, basically. All these weird lines and stuff, though, show us what it's doing. Now, I'm going to have to move the floor, because if you look, it's not quite in the right position. So, if I select my floor, which is here, I can offset it. So to -200, and I'm betting here -200, and now I can turn off my dungeon debug data. There we are, and I know the floor's in the right position. So this is all the generated stuff, right? Now, we've got floors, so that makes part of it quite easy. What about walls and stuff, yeah? So let's get a wall, and I am going to get myself, here we are, this wall here. Okay, and this is a slightly fixed model of the wall because I had to change the scale and the mapping. But if I just drag that into place and declare it as a wall, and then again change my things because my pivot points are off, and there you can see, alright, beautiful. We have these walls come in place, yeah? Now, what about the corridors between the rooms? Well, in the corridors between the rooms, we have a fence. So I'm going to grab a fence, and in this case it's just a wall 400 by 200. Just drag it down. And again, I'm just going to change its offset. So that was completely wrong. Well done, mate. Here we go. Rotation isn't the one, it's location. No. I think it must be in this one. Yes. Okay, so now we've got these fences, see? All starting to come together. Now let's stick in a doorway. So here we go. And I mean, this is a very simple example of what I'm talking about, right? So here's the door. And again, I think this will be -200 here. No. Let's get the offset wrong. There we go. So there's our doors. Okay, and then over here I can put in ramps. So this is basically as simple as it gets. Okay, we have areas people can walk in, we have rooms they can go in, and we have pathways they can walk across. It's a very simple way of doing it, but it works. Now, I'm just going to save this and close it down. If I take you to look now at my actual simple modern theme that I've been developing here, you'll see there's a big difference, and it takes a lot longer to calculate. So if I just scooch over here, And as you see from the door, originally it was just like, oh, we've got this piece, one piece, that's what we did in the previous. But in actual fact, my door is this lot here, and a lot of them have conditions imposed upon them. So they won't be placed inside this level until such a time as it decides that it's correct. Love that hole there, I don't know why it's there. You occasionally get glitches like that, it's cool. So, oh, I see, it's because there's supposed to be a staircase there. Nice. Anyway, sorry, I was getting called out there. So, as you see though, this takes place for all of them. So, the outside floor, for example, is the selection of bolts that hold the floor in place, which is called by floors when it needs the node in. The fence here is actually made from all these different parts per section. Plus, it's made from a light that emits light. And then over here, you've got your details on the walls. Now those are, if I just turn around and go over, the pipes that run down the side. Again, these haven't been textured, which is basically the equivalent of colouring in. However, it's not a hard thing to do, because I just need to do it by item, and it'll propagate for the entire level, which makes my job so much easier. I mean, you can see what difference a nice texture makes on something. Now, if I go inside, obviously the rooms aren't populated with anything yet, but they will be. Just got to give it time. I have to build some more node scripts, basically, to work on the basic population of the level, so that I can come in and do what they call kind of hero level dressing. If you ever see films where they've got, you know, high detail 3D models, they're called hero models because they have a lot of stuff on them compared to like the other stuff that you don't tend to see so much in the background. Alright, so hopefully that's good. Well, that was a nice serious chat about what nodes are. The thing about this, you see, is it seems like quite serious business, but in actual fact it's very, very easy once you get used to it. So I'll close down simple model, and I will go to my build area just here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to invoke my level build. So at the minute, as you can see, okay, I built quite a small setup, and that was primarily just to check that I could make something, that I could do something inside these rooms, because I'm working with some emissives, and I don't think they were quite high enough in their emission to actually do any lighting. They're just glowing, that's about it. Where did I put that? What is their lighting level anyway? Hang on, I'm curious now. 50, yeah, that's probably why. Now, what I can do if I decide that, well, this level's just not big enough for me, is I can go to here where it says Dungeon 1 and just destroy it. And it's all gone. All gone. And then I can say, well, it wasn't big enough. Perhaps if I had 100 cells, click build. And it'll take a moment or two, trust me on this, it really will. Right, now then, I'll get rid of these three. Flip moment. And you can see, and I mean, I realise this isn't lit very well, so I've had to turn the light off. But we have this enormous thing, you see, which has saved me so much time because it's built this huge procedural system. Now, if we were in, obviously the video game, it would be lit. There we go. So you can kind of see we've got this kind of nice, cool, dark look going on for it, which I rather like. Yeah, I like that. Alright, so hopefully you've got an idea of what procedural building of node-based levels is. If you want to have a try at doing it, if you have a decent-ish computer, almost all the tools are free. Dungeon Architect will set you back a hefty 95 quid, but everything else that you see that I'm using here is actually free, like the game engine and everything else. Now, what can you do with this, you may be asking? Well, if you've ever seen a video game, this is what these make. Basically, you build it and you have a video game. It's not quite as simple as that, because you've got to consider things like, you know, building logic systems for enemies, and you've got to consider things like building, you know, well, an actual storyline would be a help, really, wouldn't it? Otherwise, there's no reason for you to be there. But you get the kind of idea anyway. Anyway, I hope that this has been kind of useful and interesting to you. This one goes out to my old chum Hugh, who asked what the hell I was talking about. Hopefully you'll get around and watching it, Hugh. And for the rest of you guys, you got a request? Don't be a pest.